Have you ever walked into a room and just felt that the game was already over? That the battle for respect was won or lost before anyone even said a word? Well, that's because there's this silent, biological broadcast happening all the time, signaling our status, our power. And the thing is, most of us are totally unaware of the messages we're sending. So today we're going to dive into this hidden world of submission cues. We'll find out how your own survival instincts might be quietly taking you apart, and, more importantly, what you can do to reclaim your ground.
That one hits, doesn't it? We're all taught to be cooperative, to be agreeable, to be nice. But in the nonverbal language of status, those good intentions can get dangerously twisted. What you think is a gesture of teamwork, your biology can actually frame as a certificate of surrender. It signals to others that you're not a peer to negotiate with, but maybe a subordinate to be managed. Look, this isn't about being aggressive. It's about becoming aware of the silent signals you're putting out there 24/7. All right. So let's pull back the curtain on this invisible surrender. What is actually happening inside of us when we feel our authority just slipping away? We're about to get into how your body's best attempts to keep you safe can paradoxically make you small and strip you of your power right when you need it most. Okay, let's start with a really core concept, the predator reflex. Now, this doesn't mean people are actually malicious predators. It's about a deeply wired, primitive response. When your body language signals weakness, when you hunch over or make yourself small, it doesn't always register as niceness to the other person's primal brain. Instead, it can flip a switch in them, triggering a complementary dominant response. It's almost automatic. It encourages them to take up more space, to push their ideas harder, and to frankly treat you as a lower status person in the room. We've got to give this experience a name. I call it the status sink. And you know this feeling. You're in a big meeting or maybe just a tense conversation, and you can physically feel your influence just draining away, like water down a drain. It's this universal pattern, and today we're going to diagnose exactly what's causing it. The, let's say, official term for this is the erosion of executive sovereignty. So let's just break that down. Executive is about your ability to make decisions and act. Sovereignty is your right to self-govern, to be in charge of you. So when this erodes, you lose that fundamental baseline of respect. People stop treating you like an equal. Your ideas get ignored. Your boundaries get pushed. And you slowly go from being a player in the game to just a piece on the board. And, this erosion kicks off this awful domino effect. It starts with social invisibility. You talk, but it feels like you're on mute. Then that leads to the invisible target syndrome. Because you signaled that your boundaries are kind of optional, people feel, more comfortable just walking right past them. Internally, this builds up what's called psychological reactance. You get this growing resentment because you feel disrespected, but you don't realize your own cues might have invited it. And all of this just feeds a self-perpetuating cycle of status atrophy, where every time you yield, it makes it easier to yield the next time, until you're just sidelined. So how does this actually play out? It's not random. It's a system. And now we're getting to the absolute core of it, the calibration-yielding loop. I want you to think of this as a 4-stage trap that snaps shut on us, usually before we even know we're in it. So how does it happen? How does a simple, everyday interaction escalate into a total wipeout of your authority? Well, it happens in 4 very distinct escalating stages that just feed on each other. This is where the trap closes. So picture this. You're in a high-stakes meeting. The loop kicks off with step 1, the ventral denial. You subconsciously shield the front of your body. You cross your arms, you hold a notebook to your chest, maybe you angle your body away. It's a primal signal that you feel threatened. This immediately triggers step 2, the turtle effect. Your shoulders creep up towards your ears, an instinct to protect your neck. To everyone else, though, it just reads as chronic uncertainty. Then comes the verbal part. Step 3, the upspeak inversion. Every statement you make ends with your voice going up, turning a fact into a question. You're basically asking for permission to be right. And finally, the loop slams shut with step 4, the rapid-fire nod. This isn't agreement. It's a desperate appeasement gesture that screams, "Please don't challenge me," and it just confirms your subordinate role. Each step makes the next one almost guaranteed. Okay, so why on earth would our brains do this to us? I mean, it seems completely self-defeating, right? Well, the answer lies deep in our evolutionary wiring, in a concept we're going to call the ethological lock. Let's dig into why our own brain sometimes chooses to shrink when every logical part of us is screaming to stand tall. At its core, your brain is constantly making a primal trade-off. On one side, you have this deep, instinctual need for safety. It's driven by this ancient fear of tribal ostracism, the absolute terror of being kicked out of the group, which, for our ancestors, meant certain death. So your brain thinks that by yielding, by being small, it's keeping you safe. But on the other side of that trade is status. And in the modern world, status is what you need for autonomy, for respect. Your brain, running on this ancient software, will often pick what it perceives as safety over the status you actually need to thrive. And this brings us to this lock and key dynamic. We're calling it the ethological lock. Your submission cues, they're the key. When you display them, you are literally inserting that key into the lock of the other person's brain. And get this, it triggers a dopamine spike for them, a little chemical reward that encourages their dominant behavior. It's a perfectly complementary system. Your shrinking directly and neurologically empowers their expansion. You are literally rewarding them for dominating the interaction.
And here's the neuroscience that makes it all stick. There's a primitive part of your brain called the basal ganglia, and it is obsessed with social hierarchy. It is constantly scanning to figure out where you fit in. So when you fall into this yielding cycle, your basal ganglia basically goes, yes, this feels right, I recognize this power dynamic, let's stick with this. It floods you with a sense of neurochemical correctness for falling in line, which is why this incredibly damaging behavior can feel so comfortable in the moment. And that makes the cycle so hard to break without a conscious effort.
So what's happening in the other person's head while all this is going on? Well, they're using a mental shortcut. It's called the status acceptance heuristic. Their brain isn't doing some deep, thoughtful analysis of your skills and competence. Nope, it's just taking your signals at face value. You signal low status, so their brain just accepts it as fact. And the result? You get locked into a subordinate position based entirely on the signals you're sending out, not on who you actually are. So, we've diagnosed the problem, we have looked at the mechanism, and we understand the neurology. Now we pivot, because this is not a life sentence, this is a system, and any system can be hacked. We are now moving into the strategic toolkit, the actual actionable steps you can take to override these primitive reflexes and reclaim your sovereignty. All right, here they are, the 4 counter moves to break that calibration-yielding loop. I want you to think of these as your tactical response team for when you feel that status sink starting. We're going to go from unconsciously shrinking to consciously anchoring. The first and most critical step is all in your head. The second you feel yourself start to turtle up, to nod too fast, to look away, you have to label it. You just say to yourself, this is a status yielding reflex. That simple act of naming it engages your prefrontal cortex, the logical CEO of your brain. It pulls you out of that emotional, primitive lizard brain reaction and puts you back in the driver's seat. It literally breaks the spell. Next, you have to use your body to talk to your brain. It's a move called ventral exposure, or the power anchor. You do the exact opposite of what your instincts are screaming at you to do. You physically force your shoulders back and down, opening up your chest. You plant your feet firmly on the ground. This physical posture sends a powerful, undeniable signal back to your own brain that says, hey, there is no physical threat here. This immediately starts to lower your cortisol levels, and it lets you think clearly again. Now, you have to control your gaze. The instinct when you're in that yielding state is to look down, to look away. You must override this. The gaze anchor means you maintain steady eye contact. And hey, if that feels too intense, here's a great tactic. Look at the bridge of their nose. They honestly can't tell the difference. This is such a critical move. It disrupts the whole hierarchical signaling of the loop and sends a clear message. I am your peer. And finally, you take back your voice. You're going to practice what I call the period rule. When you speak, make a conscious effort to drop your vocal pitch at the end of the sentence. Land it firmly like you're putting a period at the end of it. No more upspeak that turns all your statements into questions. You speak in declarations. This vocally restores your executive sovereignty, and it forces other people to process your words as facts to be considered, not just requests for validation. So, as we bring all of this together, what's the real takeaway here? It's more than just a few tactics, right? It's a fundamental shift in your entire mindset. It's a brand new mandate for how you show up in the world. You move from unconsciously shrinking to consciously anchoring. And this is the whole game right here. Power in a professional setting is almost never taken by force. It is far more often just abdicated. It's signaled away through all of these tiny, unconscious micro-behaviors we've been talking about. And that means the solution isn't to be more aggressive. The solution is to be more aware. Your awareness is the light that makes this entire subconscious system just collapse. So let's end on this one final crucial idea. Your job is not to make yourself smaller, to try and fit into the power dynamics that already exist in a room. Your mandate
is to hold your ground, to expand your presence, and in doing so, become an anchor of stability and authority in that room. Just remember this: don't shrink to fit the room, expand to anchor it.